All right, here come the weird gloaty articles. Let's have a look.
Hello, I started this gangster shit. Just the motherfucking thanks I get. Hello, I started this gangster shit. And this the motherfucking thanks I get. Hello.
Oh yeah, good morning. Welcome to Comic Artist Pro Secrets. You're listening to Ethan Van Sciver, 25-year veteran of the comic book industry, illustrator of Jordan B. Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, creator of Cyberfrog Blood Honey, and a great big Star Wars fan. So, last Friday, September 28th, we got word from the Hollywood Reporter that Kathleen Kennedy was going to be re-upped as president of Lucasfilm for another 3 years. 1, 2, 3. 3 more years of Kathleen Kennedy's leadership, her guidance or non-guidance, her terrible ideas. Ostensibly, we are looking at 3 more years of The Last Jedi and Solo on repeat. That is what the fans perceived. That is what 50%, I think, of Star Wars fans saw. And the other 50% really just don't seem to care, or they like this. I mean, they actually like these weirdo movies. They enjoy watching Star Wars kind of decline, and they're just kind of digging it. They're digging the fact that it drives regular people crazy. Such is the case here. Kathleen Kennedy saved Star Wars, says Chris Agar. No relation to Shirley Temple, I assure you. We used to say, Chris Agar, over at Screen Rant, well, is he the product of a union between John Agar and Shirley Temple Black way back in the 1950s? No, it turns out not. Most definitely not. America's sweetheart Shirley Temple could never breed this kind of monstrosity here. Kathleen Kennedy saving Star Wars. Let me tell you something. If Star Wars were a living thing, this woman would be a biohazard. There is no possible way that Kathleen Kennedy saved Star Wars from anything. In fact, she's hastened its demise. She is burying it faster than anything I could ever imagine. But let's see what Chris Agar has to say. We want to keep our minds open. I want to keep an open mind to Chris Agar and his gibberish. I want to keep an open mind to Screen Rant and their preposterous ideas and notions. And most of all, let's remember that at this point, when it seems that Kathleen Kennedy is still going to be here for another 3 years. And by the way, that may or may not be true, as it turns out. We are going to be kind of flummoxed by situations like this. Let's see what they have to say. Maybe they make a point. Let's find out if Chris Agar has a point here. Kathleen Kennedy saved the Star Wars franchise. That is the premise. That is Chris Agar's premise, that Kathleen Kennedy actually helped it. I wonder how. Handpicked by George Lucas to run Lucasfilm after the studio was acquired by Disney in 2012, Kennedy had the gargantuan task of reviving one of cinema's landmark properties. No, it ain't that hard. Just throw Han Solo, Princess Leia, Mark Hamill, Chewbacca, R2-D2, and C-3PO in some movie, and people are going to come see it. Now, actually do those things and make it good and make it feel good, and people are going to come see the next one. So Kathleen Kennedy did the easy part. She failed at the slightly more difficult second part. The Force Awakens was fun in some places, but most of all, it was it was a cynical slapdash effort that disgraced Han Solo and set us up for the ultimate and pathetic, depressing disgrace of one of cinema's greatest heroes, Luke Skywalker. These are undeniable facts. A lot more so than Kathleen Kennedy saved the Star Wars franchise. I could win that case in court. Star Wars had been a pop culture staple since its debut in 1977, but the property had been dormant for many years following the release of The Revenge of the Sith. What's more is that Mickey Mouse dropped $4 billion to get their hands on the Star Wars rights, which means they had big plans for the brand that went beyond just making a new trilogy in the Skywalker saga. Well, that doesn't seem to be the case. I think Disney is kind of hoping that something might happen to continue Star Wars, and yet the people that they're asking to continue Star Wars past the Skywalker saga have no clue what they're doing or talking about. We read an interview by Rian Johnson in which he explained how exactly he was given the job, the assignment of doing a new non-Skywalker trilogy, and he said his pitch was very simple. It was almost embarrassing in its simplicity. We're just going to go to a new galaxy and meet some new people, and it's going to be Star Wars, but somewhere else. Brilliant, you're hired. You're hired. And after the massive success, in quotes, quote unquote success of The Last Jedi, perhaps he was, I don't know. Well, actually, this was before the Last Jedi came out. He was. Oh yeah, it was. It was in December, right before The Last Jedi premiered. Disney and Lucasfilm hadn't yet understood, didn't yet quite comprehend the disaster that The Last Jedi would turn out to be for the Star Wars franchise, and we've all kind of seen that happen together. So on paper, Kennedy read as an excellent choice to follow Lucas. In what way? A longtime collaborator of Steven Spielberg. She didn't collaborate. There's a difference between somebody who's there as kind of an assistant, somebody who helps out, a producer, and somebody who's actually creative. Creative people, like Lawrence Kasdan, are collaborators. Kathleen Kennedy is, some help. She's some help. And she'd been there for a long time. She got producer credit, most definitely, but I'm not so sure that reads as an excellent choice to follow George Lucas, who is an absolutely incredible creative genius, even though he does occasionally saddle us and himself with some poor ideas. Jar Jar Binks being among them. Of course, she was entering new territory, being the president of a studio and overseeing one of Hollywood's biggest franchises, but she was more than qualified for the job. Says who? This sounds like Hillary Clinton speak. She was not qualified for the job. Clearly. 6 years have passed since the Disney-Lucasfilm merger, and Kennedy's tenure has had its various ups and downs. No, straight down. There have been no ups and downs. It's been straight down. From The Force Awakens and its massive, gigantic success, $2.3 billion, to The Last Jedi, which was $1.1 billion. That's a line going straight down. From Rogue One and its $1.1 billion, intake to Solo, a Star Wars story which actually lost money and made $392 million. That is, again, that is straight down. Yeah, sorry for hitting the camera there. Straight down, isn't it? Is it at this angle? Wait, what angle is it? Is it like this angle from 1.1 billion to 392 million, or is it like this? I think it's more like this, frankly. That's just my opinion. It depends on the chart. I would make the graph so that it went like this, frankly. Absolutely, just various downs. But as she prepares to lead the galaxy far, far away for 3 more years, it's safe to say she rescued Star Wars. Is it safe? I don't know if it's safe to say that. Before we examine Kennedy's contributions to Star Wars, it's worth taking a look at where the franchise was before its time under the Disney umbrella. George Lucas released the prequel trilogy through 20th Century Fox between 1999 and 2005, and everyone thought that was it. No, I didn't. Did everyone think that was it? I don't think everyone thought that was it. I think some people did. The story of Anakin Skywalker's rise, fall, and redemption had been told, and the saga came to a close. Yet, yes, Star Wars existed in other mediums, the Clone Wars TV shows, novels, etc., but it largely faded from the spotlight with no new live-action movies on the horizon. In a 2005 interview, Lucas even went so far as to say there is no Episode 7, and he was moving on to other projects. A lack of fresh material hurt, but Star Wars' reputation was also sullied by the mixed reaction to the prequels. Now, those prequels seem glorious. In comparison, those prequels seem amazing. Everyone loves the prequels now. While the films definitely have their share of fans, and more have come to appreciate their merits in recent years. Yep, very recently, we've come to appreciate their merits. Is that a link? Oh God, this better not be porn. When did the Star Wars prequels become cool? They became cool as soon as everyone saw The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. Question answered. Let's go back to this. All right, very good. That trilogy didn't resonate with the zeitgeist as strongly as the classic films. Criticism from vocal corners of the fan base is primarily what caused Lucas to retire from blockbuster filmmaking, as he felt it wasn't worth the trouble anymore. If Disney never agreed to buy Lucasfilm, chances are Star Wars is still a 6-film series. Oh, that's right. Wow, you're making a case against yourself, Chris Agar. with many wondering what might have been if Lucas brought in other directors to make the prequels. Yeah, that's true. We would have wondered. The fate of Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and Leia would have been left up to our imaginations, which is infinitely better than the reality that was brought to us by J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson under the watchful in quotes again, quote unquote, watchful beady eyes of Kathleen Kennedy, who basically ruined those characters. She even managed to ruin Lando Calrissian. How do you ruin Lando Calrissian? Oh, it's very simple. You make him a sexual pervert. That's how you ruin Lando Calrissian. And unbelievably, she actually did that. Or she allowed it to happen, of course. Of course, Star Wars is now here to stay. And that's in large part because of this woman sitting in this chair right here, smugly, with this gentleman right here. Looks like a racer head. It's impossible to overstate the importance of Episode 7. Disney spent small fortune on Lucasfilm. It's a small fortune. A few $1 billion. That's not a small fortune. That's a lot of money. That's a big fortune. It would be if it were in my bank account. And there were plans in place for an entire slate of new movies. Before The Force Awakens hit theaters, its fellow sequel trilogy installments had creative teams in place and spin-offs. Rogue One and Solo were in the works, and then Kathleen Kennedy fired everyone. She fired the screenwriters, she fired the directors, she hired people in various stages. By the way, she fired people in various stages of their own projects. Solo was 85% of the way finished, 2 weeks from completion. She fired the creative team and brought in Ron Howard. This is an incompetent woman. Incompetent. Absolutely incompetent. Anyone could have done her job better. Anyone. All you'd have to do is say, hey, we've got a lot of money to spend and we're going to bring back Star Wars and the original cast. Will you agree? And at what cost? Let's get some good screenwriters in there, like Chuck Wendig. No, not Chuck Wendig. Anybody but Chuck Wendig. And then we're on our way. We're off to the races. But no. That's not what happened at all. If Episode 7 failed to connect with audiences, it would have been a disaster. Few people understood that more than Kennedy, and that's why she worked diligently to ensure the movie was as strong as it can be. She convinced an initially hesitant J.J. Abrams, who successfully revived Star Trek, to direct and commissioned a script rewrite when it was determined. Yeah, that's right. She fire everyone. Fire every person whose draft isn't working, and then hire somebody else arbitrarily. There was also a conscious effort in early marketing materials to distance The Force Awakens from the prequels, embracing the tone and the aesthetics by ripping off the original trilogy. Brilliant ideas all around. The end results speak for themselves. At the time of its release in December of 2015, The Force Awakens was the most critically acclaimed series entry since The Empire Strikes Back and hailed as a return to form. It also rewrote the box office record books, grossing an astonishing $936.6 million domestically, a figure that will never likely be topped, and more than $2 billion worldwide. While some were quick to point out the obvious parallels between The Force Awakens and A New Hope, the film that it ripped off shamelessly, the general consensus was that Star Wars was back and people were excited about the future. Kennedy also, controversially, wiped out the old expanded universe. So no Thrawn trilogy, everyone. I'm so sorry. Timothy Zahn, whatever you're doing, forget about it. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Relabeling it as Legends. While supplemental materials like books and comics aren't a requirement to understand the movies, a reboot made them more accessible for newcomers, interested in reading more. Interested, not interesting in reading more. Also, all mediums would be united under one canon, creating numerous storytelling possibilities. Look at this. Part 2. Kennedy's mistakes don't outweigh the good. Oh, well, I don't know. I think if you put them on a scale, they might. All right, I gotta calm down. All right, we're on page 2. All right, Hilly, sunny and happy. Sunshine and lollipops here. Let's try again. However, Kennedy's track record isn't spotless. No, amazingly, it's not. It's imperfect. Kennedy's track record, believe it or not, is imperfect, especially when it comes to hiring directors. The nadir of her tenor is definitely Solo. That's the nadir of Star Wars, not just her tenor. That is the nadir of the entire franchise, you clown. That is the pit. That is Star Wars losing money. Nobody's ever seen that. Why? These people who embrace the idea of Kathleen Kennedy staying on board, and I think they do it just to spite, one other half of the fandom. These people are willing to settle for that. They're willing to accept that, and they're willing to just kind of say, well, what's the big deal? You win some, you lose some. Star Wars doesn't lose some. It shouldn't lose some. It shouldn't ever lose some. And certainly not a sum like $80 million or more. Probably much, much more. That movie should have made $1 billion. It failed to make $1 billion. Didn't even make half of $1 billion. There's no denying that Kennedy mismanaged that situation. Disney did too, allowing Phil Lord and Chris Miller to shoot a majority of the film before firing them over creative differences. That is a big mismanagement. That's a huge mismanagement. Solo's budget had to be doubled in order to complete Ron Howard's reshoots. I know that's true. They haven't really talked about it, but I think the budget was twice what we think it is. I think they talk about how it cost $250 million to make Solo. I think it cost twice that. Unbelievable. And that's before advertising. That's before promotion at Denny's. I went to Denny's. It wasn't. Well, I mean, you know what? The breakfast, the Solo breakfast that they had at Denny's at the time, it made me feel about the same way the movie did, to be honest with you. So it had to be doubled in order to complete Ron Howard's reshoots, which ultimately doomed the spinoff commercially, even though it still got generally positive reviews from critics who were on the take. While not as severe, Kennedy also had fallouts with Josh Trank, who she hired to do Boba Fett. Get out of here. A Boba Fett anthology. And Colin Trevorrow, who was going to do Episode 9. Get out of here. Neither of these men are bitter. They are, they make wry observations on their Twitter. They make fun of the movies that failed without them. I enjoy that. I actually enjoy their Twitter, especially Colin Trevorrow, who was a man among men. The things that he had to say about The Last Jedi were downright hilarious. And he used, I think his child was making a movie. His kid was making a movie, and he basically used the movie that his kid was making to illustrate some points about The Last Jedi's failure. It was amusing. To a lesser extent, the Gareth Edwards choice didn't entirely work out, as Tony Gilroy picked up a $5 million check to oversee extensive Rogue One reshoots and fix the third act. Well, good for him. Though Lord and Miller aside, these are fairly standard incidents for the film industry. Star Wars is hardly the only major franchise to part ways with directors, so it's difficult to blame Kennedy for most of these examples. Well, I mean, there were a big handful of examples. I can't think of one Star Wars film that she's done that hasn't been a catastrophe of some sort. She fires everyone. She hires people and fires people left and right. It's craziness. The most vocal Last Jedi detractors believe Kennedy deserved to be ousted for dividing the fan base and making Star Wars discourse quite toxic, but odds are Episode 8 would have been polarizing no matter what Rian Johnson did. Incorrect. There are many things that Rian Johnson could have done with Episode 8 that would have united the fandom, including making Luke Skywalker the admirable hero that he was always meant to be, that he was. If the movie were less cynical and disgusting, it probably wouldn't have divided fandom as much. I mean, sure, we'd have criticisms. All of us would disagree about certain things, but the heart of that film, the movie about Luke Skywalker, was disgraceful. It was disgraceful. I think we could even all agree, eventually, that Rose Tico was a fantastic character. Well, maybe not, but I'll always go to bat for Rose Tico. When it comes to something as massive as Star Wars, it's impossible to please everybody. It isn't. A New Hope pleased everyone. Empire Strikes Back pleased everyone. Return of the Jedi pleased most people except for people who don't like Ewoks. And I like the Ewoks. I think they're vicious little monsters. I dig them. Revenge of the Sith also pleased almost everyone. This idea that it's impossible to make a movie that pleases everyone is silly. Star Wars has always pleased everyone. Always. Yeah. But Rian Johnson is a moron, and he can't, he can't do that. He is out to deliberately, as he said, he's out to deliberately piss off half of his audience. He actually said that. Millions of viewers had their own theories brewing for 2 years. Even with all the controversy, The Last Jedi still earned $1.3 billion worldwide and is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, on the take, corrupt. By most metrics, it was a success. Kennedy's done more good. Look at her face. Oh, it's ghoulish and frightening. That's terrifying. What if you woke up, seriously, what if you woke up out of a dead sleep and you opened your eyes and this was right in your face? What would you do? What would you do? God, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. Creepy. All right, so even with Solo falling short of financial expectations, yes, it did. It fell short. They were hoping to make a profit on that film, and it fell short of that expectation. If you're expecting to break even or make a profit on all of the work that you did, you worked really hard to make money, and you actually threw away $80 million instead, they did negative work. They worked so hard to lose $80 million. Watch those documentaries on the Blu-ray. It's depressing. Everyone worked so hard and brought all their talent to bear. People thinking too hard about land speeders that Han Solo might be flying around in on Corellia. And for what? And for what? To lose $80 million. My gosh, they paid to make that movie. Think of that. They paid to make that movie. Incredible. They could have just bought, I'm telling you, they could have done absolutely anything. They could have held a gigantic raffle. They should have bought 80 million raffle tickets. They should have bought 80 million raffle tickets to win a toaster. And if they'd won that toaster, which they almost certainly would have under those circumstances, they still would have done better. It would have been a more profitable film than Solo was under this woman, this leering ghoul of a woman. Episode 9 hitting theaters December 2019. Should be a massive box office hit. And another proper cinematic event. Well, we'll see. Additionally, Kennedy has demonstrated she isn't afraid to take chances with Lucasfilm's prized possession. Oh, great, thanks. She signed off on Johnson's risky creative choices on The Last Jedi. Whether one agrees with them or not, we don't. Nobody does. It says a lot that they didn't play it safe. No, it doesn't. And it pushed the tragic Rogue One ending that killed an entire cast of characters. By the way, Rogue One was the only good movie that Disney has made. Star Wars movie. The only good Star Wars movie thus far. And it still wasn't that good. But I enjoyed it. It felt like Star Wars to me. Yes, filmmakers have to play by Kennedy's rules to stick around, as Lord and Miller will tell you. But you know what? Hell, you can stay on and get 85% of your project done. You can play by your own rules for 85% of the time, and then you got to go once Kathleen Kennedy wakes up from her nap, and sees what you've done with the $250 million she lent you. I mean, absolutely insane. This article is insane, Chris Agar. This is insanity. This is gibberish. This is mumbledy gibberish. Mumbledy gibberish. But a lot of the movies she's made are encouraging. Is that it? Are you done yet? No. In the last handful of years, Star Wars has captured the imagination of a new generation of fans, giving the youngsters of today tales in a galaxy far, far away they can call their own. This ensures Star Wars won't become a relic of the past as we get further and further from the prequels, and instead continue to inspire viewers for years to come. Now, I ask you, Chris, why is this uniquely Kathleen Kennedy's doing? In other words, what I'm saying is Kathleen Kennedy just happened to be there. She's done a bad job of doing what almost anyone could have done. Just making Star Wars films, some of which flop horribly and some of which happen to make some money, is a job that anyone could do. Managing the Lucasfilm franchise, managing talent, matching up directors with proper projects, having a creative vision, a cohesive vision that expands beyond what George Lucas actually did. That's something that actually takes talent. And Kathleen Kennedy hasn't proven that she has any talent like that. Kathleen Kennedy has been miserable at her job. All of the movies that she's made have clung tightly to the edge of what George Lucas did before her. She hasn't produced anything new. She hasn't created anything new. Magically, she just kind of repeated George Lucas and kept the ball floating. Floating? No, kept the boat floating? Kept the boat afloat? I don't know. You guys are going to have to help me with the metaphor there. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. But let's see. There might be some good stuff coming up. This ensures Star Wars won't become a relic of the past. But Disney may be planning a slowdown after Episode 9. They're going to put out Episode 9, and they're probably not going to do anything else, during Kennedy's 3 years, I would say. I think that's probably a safe bet. So we've got 2019, and then we've got 2 years after that, where if Kennedy is still around, there's still some people saying this is probably just a thing, more face covering, or more face saving, more ass covering and face saving. She'll probably step down sometime before then. But who knows? I don't even know anymore. The world used to make sense before Friday. The world doesn't make any sense anymore. Not with Kathleen Kennedy at Lucasfilm for another 3 years. Everything seems baffling and strange. But Chris Agar is struggling to explain how this is a good thing, and so far he's not doing a great job. All right, so there's the Galaxy's Edge theme park opening, and Kennedy has the future stacked with more Star Wars content. Future Star Wars content. Jon Favreau's live-action TV show, Johnson's new trilogy. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Jon Favreau's show. That's going to be interesting. Johnson's new trilogy probably is not going to happen. I don't see how it would happen. Well, they've got this trilogy happening. They've got David Benioff and D.B. Weiss's film series. That's a trilogy. When exactly is Rian Johnson's film trilogy going to fit in? It seems to me from what Bob Iger said to The Hollywood Reporter that this one has been fast-tracked, and this one is not even being mentioned anymore. I just think this is good. But you never know. You never know right now. We live in a world of crazy people making incredibly strange decisions to spite fandom. So we're not sure about Johnson's new trilogy, but again, it doesn't seem like it makes any sense to keep that on unless it's going to come out, 7 years from now? I mean, how long would it take? It'd take a long time. They're all exciting propositions that'll explore new characters and fresh stories outside of the Skywalkers. The possibilities are endless, and it should be fun to see what Kennedy and company come up with. If fun is your idea, like if you would like to be submerged in a swamp in a bamboo cage while rats eat your toes, if that's your idea of fun, then this will be fun too. It'll be really, really fun. You'll never know. You never know what Kathleen Kennedy is going to come up with. It should be amusing to see. Kennedy has become an easy target after The Last Jedi's divisiveness and solo bombing, but she's more than earned the right to stay in her current position. How? With her at the helm, Star Wars Renaissance took off in a grand style, and despite a stumble here and there, falling flat on her face, it's gone about as good as anyone could have hoped. Kennedy is more than willing to make very tough calls if it means a better final product. Her calls seem arbitrary, and so far the better product, I haven't seen it. Which means she's committed to helping each film reach its full potential. Someone of her skill and expertise will certainly learn from her experiences, paving the way for greater things to come. Star Wars is lucky to have Kennedy. Oh, that's interesting. Related, Disney rushed Star Wars and needs to slow down. That's interesting. That is an interesting addendum. Join the fandom menace and execute your own Order 66 with our incredible line of t-shirts, Soylo, a Soy Wars story, Tico, a Soy Wars story, and our brand new smoking hot Soy Wars Plan 9. Make a statement today. This is the only trilogy you'll ever need. The link is below in the description. Hey, want to follow me on Twitter? Okay, cool. I'm at Ethan Van Sciver. Talk to you there. If you enjoyed this video and want to become part of this community, subscribe to this channel by clicking the laughing man face logo right on your screen. Ring the bell for notifications as well. You'll never miss a live chat. And stay tuned, another video by Comic Artist Pro Secrets is coming right up.